Hi, I'm Lin Bridgeford. This is Lin's Show and Tell, and today we're going to look at the spine. It's a very interesting, very intricate piece of kit because it moves, it needs to move. So we naturally have curves in the spine. We have the lumbar curve, and then it changes around like an S. We have the thoracic curve, and then we have the cervical. So that's the lumbar is the low back, the thorax is the whole thoracic area, the cervical is the neck, and then the head sits on top. Some people have more of what's called a lordosis here than others. Naturally, some have more of a kyphosis, and sometimes it's a problem. It just depends how our curve works. Each vertebra is slightly different. We have 7 neck vertebrae. The top 2 are very different to the others. This has been cut off for show. All these little processes out the back here are called spinous processes. They're what you can feel down your back where you see those lumpy bits. Out to the side here we have transverse processes because they're at the side. So we have 7 neck vertebrae. We have 12 thoracic vertebrae. We have 12 ribs. The ribs come off the thoracic vertebra and they're attached to the sternum at the front, except for the 2 that don't. The lumbar vertebra, there's 5 of them. I have to say sometimes people have more or less. There are anomalies in nature, and these are more square than the rest. They don't have ribs, so they're much more flexible. Another bony bit, the sacrum, triangular bone at the base, and then the coccyx, the remnants of the tail down at the bottom. If you've ever fallen on that, you know how it hurts. These are the ilia, commonly called hip bones, although the hip goes into this socket here, and the pelvis, the pubis at the front. Right at the top you have the occiput, the base of the skull, and you can see there, this is where the spinal cord goes all the way through. Inside that are 3 layers of fascia, the dura, the tough mother. They're very strong pieces of fascia, and everything connects to everything else in the body through fascia. So technically speaking, you could really say that the little finger connects inside the spine if you look at that whole network where we start as an elastic ball with fluid in the middle, and we grow into lots of tubes with fluid and a few lumpy bits. So the bones are the lumpy bits. So the nerves all come out of the spine. We have 2 kinds. We have sensory, for where we feel things, and motor nerves, they move. So these go out all around the body. Everything comes out of the spine. Here we have the discs. They're like cushions between the vertebrae. Now you've heard of a slipped disc. Now a slipped disc is an odd thing because really it doesn't slip that way. You can either get a prolapse or a herniated disc which can bulge. Depending whether it bulges to the side or the front of the back will give you different symptoms. If you have a bend in the side, which you can get when you're leaning into one side after an injury, that can squeeze this nerve here, which is between the 4th and 5th lumbar vertebra, the sciatic nerve. Now it comes out and goes underneath the muscle called the piriformis and splits into 3 ways down the leg. Anybody who's had sciatica knows how painful that is. They might feel it in the legs. It comes from the back. So it's very thick. It's like this when it goes through underneath the muscle. So if you're squeezing that, that can make you feel like you have a really serious problem, but it might just be a tight muscle. It could also be a disc problem. It could be serious, but it feels worse than it is. If we go to the top, right where the base of the skull sits on top of this first vertebra, which is atypical. It doesn't have a little pointy bit. There has no spinous process, but it has what's called the condyles on the occiput, are little like slippers that go into a groove. Well, they're like feet that go into the slippers on the top here. So that has the head sitting nicely in place. If we get whiplashed or have a difficult birth, that's not sitting quite nicely. We're going to get congestion in the head. We're going to get headaches, pain. That's a brief introduction to the spine. If we want to have a little look at the pelvis, all these bones move, and in pregnancy they need to open quite a lot so all the ligaments get looser. A lot of people come to me because they have a back problem, and the association for the public about osteopathy is that it's to do with backs. Actually, it's so much more than that. You can see the connections from the back to other parts of the body. It's working with all the structures, with all the fluids, with all the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, and every joint in the body. In actual fact, if you're truly doing osteopathy, in my view, and following Andrew Still's works, you're looking at the whole person living in that body. A very common issue in back problems that I find is the muscle called the psoas. There's actually two muscles, the iliacus and the psoas. They're like brother and sister. So they're very thick, they're almost as thick as the wrist. They're attached to all 5 lumbar vertebrae and the discs, go through and attach to the hip. So they get the leg to do a straight leg raise. That's the motion of the psoas. So if both psoas muscles are tight, you're going to get more of a lordosis. If one is tight, you're going to get a pull into that side. Whichever side is tight, and then that can squeeze the disc, squeeze the nerves. The iliacus sits right in the pelvic bone here, right along the iliacus. The iliac, you have the iliacus muscle. So people would say that psoas is related to fear, and the kidneys sit on the psoas muscle, so they sit right up here nestled underneath the 12th rib. So there's a big association with kidney issues and with the psoas muscle, and they're not just kidney problems, it can be the kidney fascia that's tight from falls and impacts. To release that muscle is quite simple, yet quite painful. I sometimes teach people how to release this themselves at home, so that makes the difference between being able to get up out of bed and not. Because if the psoas is very tight, you can bend forwards and you get stuck there because it's too tight to work to bring you up. So you release it, and then people can feel more free very quickly. Thank you very much. That's a brief introduction to the spine in Lin's show and tell. If you have any questions or comments and you'd like to link on social media or subscribe, please do. I'll do my best to answer you. Thank you.